The hotel lobby gleamed with white marble floors, golden chandeliers, and the faint scent of lavender drifting from the air vents. Guests moved about, dragging sleek suitcases, laughing, sipping coffee, their conversations echoing softly through the grand space. At the reception desk stood Richard Collins, the hotel manager, proud, polished, and perpetually alert. This was the Haven Grand Hotel, one of New York's most luxurious establishments, and Richard took pride in keeping it exclusive. That morning, his attention was caught by a woman standing near the front desk. She wore a tailored black suit, minimal makeup, and carried herself with quiet confidence. Yet something about her calm presence unsettled him. She wasn't wearing the flashy designer logos he was used to seeing on the hotel's clientele. Her bag, though elegant, wasn't branded. And most of all, she was black. Richard's eyes narrowed. He leaned toward the front desk clerk, whispering, "Has that woman checked in? She looks suspicious." The young clerk hesitated, glancing at the woman. "Sir, she hasn't approached the desk yet. She might just be waiting for someone." Richard frowned. "We don't let people just hang around. This is a private property, not a waiting room." He straightened his tie and approached her. "Excuse me, ma'am," he began with forced politeness. "Can I help you? This area is for registered guests only." The woman turned her gaze toward him, steady, sharp, and calm. "Oh, I'm aware of that," she replied smoothly. "I was just taking a look around before speaking to the staff." Richard forced a smile. "I'm sorry, but you can't just wander in. Are you staying here?" She tilted her head slightly. "Not exactly." His suspicion deepened. "Then I'll have to ask you to leave, ma'am. Security policy." Before she could respond, 2 hotel security guards arrived. Richard had already called them with a subtle signal. The tall guard stepped forward, his hand resting on his radio. "Is there a problem, Mr. Collins?" "Yes," Richard said firmly. "This woman has no proof she belongs here. Escort her out, please." A hush spread through the lobby. Several guests looked up from their phones, sensing tension. The woman's calm expression didn't waver. "You're making a mistake," she said softly. Richard folded his arms. "I don't think so." The guards stepped closer. One gestured toward the door. "Ma'am, if you could please step outside." "Do you have any idea who I am?" she asked, her voice low but steady. Richard chuckled under his breath. "I'm sure you'll tell us, but unless you're a guest, that doesn't matter." The woman sighed lightly, reaching into her bag. The guards tensed instantly. "Hands where we can see them," one barked. She froze for a moment, then calmly pulled out a sleek leather folder and placed it on the reception desk. "Here," she said, pushing it toward Richard. "My identification should clear things up." Richard frowned and flipped it open. Inside was a series of official-looking documents, business registration forms, property deeds, and a photo ID. His eyes skimmed the top line. Owner, Dr. Maya Langford, his brow furrowed. "Wait, what is this supposed to mean?" The woman looked him dead in the eyes. "It means I own this hotel." The silence that followed could have shattered glass. The 2 security guards froze, glancing at each other. The receptionist's jaw dropped. Richard's mouth went dry as the color drained from his face. "That's impossible," he stammered. "The owner is Dr. Maya Langford," she finished, her tone sharp but composed. "That's me." She pointed toward a large portrait behind the front desk, a photo Richard had walked past 1,000 times. In it, a younger Maya stood beside the hotel's ribbon-cutting ceremony, smiling proudly. He had never noticed her nameplate before. A faint buzz of whispers spread through the lobby. Guests murmured, some recording discreetly with their phones. Maya took a slow step forward. "You profiled me," she said quietly. "You assumed that because I'm a black woman in your lobby, I couldn't belong here. You called security before even asking who I was." Richard's face burned. "Dr. Langford, I didn't realize—" "No," she interrupted, voice like steel. "You didn't care to realize." She picked up her folder, tucking it neatly back into her bag. "I came unannounced today to see how my staff treats guests. I see my instincts were right." Richard opened his mouth to apologize, but no words came out. The room's atmosphere was heavy with judgment. Every guest's eyes were on him. Maya turned toward the receptionist. "Call my assistant. Tell her I'll be conducting a full staff review." Then, glancing back at Richard, she added quietly, "Starting with your position." As she walked toward the elevator, her heels clicking against the marble floor, Richard's heart pounded. He felt as though the chandelier lights were burning into him. Maya didn't look back once, but the look in her eyes, calm, powerful, unshaken, was something Richard would never forget, because in that moment the suspicious woman had just become his boss. The next morning, the atmosphere inside the Haven Grand Hotel was tense. The usual morning chatter at the front desk had been replaced with hushed whispers. Everyone knew what had happened the previous day, and everyone knew that Dr. Maya Langford, the hotel's owner, was furious. Richard Collins sat inside his glass-walled office, staring blankly at the computer screen. His stomach twisted with anxiety. His phone buzzed with a message from HR. Dr. Langford requests your presence in the executive boardroom at 10 a.m. He looked at the time, 9:15. His palms were already sweating. Across the lobby, employees stole quick glances at him. Even the bellboys, usually cheerful, avoided eye contact. Richard's once unshakable authority had vanished overnight. At exactly 10, he stood before the door of the boardroom, straightened his tie, and took a deep breath. As he stepped inside, the room was already filled with department heads. Dr. Maya Langford sat at the head of the table, poised and unbothered, her sharp eyes observing every detail. "Mr. Collins," she said, her tone even, "have a seat." He nodded stiffly and sat across from her. "Do you know why we're here?" she asked. Richard swallowed. "Yes, ma'am. Because of my behavior yesterday. Your decision-making," she corrected, "and the culture that decision reflects." A few staff members shifted uncomfortably. Maya opened a folder filled with printed statements, witness accounts, camera stills, and security logs. "You called security on me within 90 seconds of seeing me in my own hotel." "Why?" Richard hesitated. I thought you were a trespasser, Dr. Langford. You weren't wearing a badge or carrying luggage. It was just a misunderstanding." Her eyes didn't soften. "A misunderstanding that revealed your bias," she said quietly. "Tell me, Mr. Collins, how many guests have you ever confronted personally about looking suspicious?" He blinked. "None, ma'am." "Then why me?" The silence in the room grew heavy. The air conditioner hummed faintly in the background. Maya leaned forward slightly, her tone calm but cutting. "This isn't just about me. It's about how you see the people who walk through those doors. I built this hotel to represent excellence, diversity, and respect, not to become another place where people are judged by the color of their skin." Richard's throat tightened. "I understand, ma'am. I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking clearly." "No," she said, her gaze steady. "You were thinking exactly how you've always thought, and that's the problem." She flipped another page in the folder. "Do you know what your staff told me after the incident? They said this wasn't the first time, that you've quietly dismissed job applicants because of how they looked or how they spoke, that you've treated guests differently depending on their appearance." Richard's eyes widened. "That's not true. I've always been professional." Maya raised her hand. "Enough. I've seen the reports myself. I didn't come here to hear excuses. I came to see if you'd have the courage to tell the truth." He dropped his gaze. "I was wrong," he murmured. Her expression softened only slightly. "Good. That's the first honest thing you've said." She stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city skyline. "When I was a young businesswoman," she began, her voice quieter now, "I walked into hotels just like this one. People looked at me the same way you did yesterday, like I didn't belong. That feeling stays with you, Mr. Collins. It shapes the way you build your world." She turned back toward him. "That's why I bought this hotel. To prove that excellence has no color." Richard listened, guilt churning inside him. "Dr. Langford, please. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. Retraining, community outreach, anything. I've dedicated 15 years to this hotel." Maya regarded him thoughtfully for a long moment. 15 years, she repeated. "And yet, in one day you nearly ruined everything I stand for." He looked down, speechless. Finally she spoke again. "You'll remain on probation until further notice. During that time, you'll attend our new Diversity and Inclusion Leadership Program. You'll report directly to my office, and if I hear one more complaint about prejudice or misconduct, you'll be terminated immediately. Is that understood?" He nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am. Understood." "Good," she said, closing the folder. Meeting adjourned. As the staff rose, whispers followed Maya out the door. Richard sat still, feeling the weight of humiliation crush his pride. When the room emptied, he stayed behind, staring at his reflection in the polished table. For the first time, he saw himself clearly, the arrogance, the bias he'd never acknowledged. Then his assistant peeked in nervously. Sir, there's a reporter outside asking questions about yesterday's incident. The story's already trending online. Richard's stomach dropped. Trending? Yes, sir. Video footage leaked. People are calling it the owner who wasn't recognized. He sank into his chair, burying his face in his hands. Maya Langford had been humiliated once, but now the world knew exactly who had humiliated her, and Richard Collins was about to learn just how powerful the woman he underestimated truly was. By the end of the week, the incident had exploded across social media. News channels replayed the shaky cell phone footage captured by a guest, Richard calling security, Maya calmly presenting her ID, and the stunned silence that followed when she revealed she owned the hotel. The headline flashed everywhere. Hotel manager calls security on owner, claims she looked out of place. Outside the Haven Grand Hotel, cameras crowded the entrance. Reporters swarmed every arriving guest, hoping for statements. Bloggers, influencers, and activists turned the story into a viral symbol of everyday bias in corporate America. Inside, the staff whispered as Richard passed. He'd lost the authority in his voice, the confidence in his stride. Even the doorman, who once greeted him respectfully, now looked at him with quiet disappointment. He sat alone in his office, the blinds drawn. His phone buzzed constantly, emails from corporate PR, legal teams, and the regional director demanding explanations. But nothing compared to the letter he received that morning. It was from Dr. Maya Langford herself. Mr. Collins, effective immediately, you are to cooperate fully with the internal investigation. While you remain employed under probation, your title will be suspended until further notice. You are expected to participate in all scheduled diversity and management ethics sessions. Dr. Maya Langford, owner and CEO. He read the letter 3 times, each word sinking deeper. The staff outside saw him through the glass, sitting motionless, letter trembling slightly in his hand. That afternoon, he received another summons, not from Maya, but from the PR director, Elena Cruz. A sharp, confident woman in her 40s, Elena didn't mince words. When Richard entered her office, she didn't even offer him a seat. "You've put this company in crisis mode," she said flatly. "Our stock took a dip. Guests are cancelling reservations. Dr. Langford's image was dragged into a scandal because of your ignorance." Richard's shoulders sagged. "Elena, please, I didn't mean—" "Intent doesn't matter anymore," she cut him off. "The world saw what you did. Now we have to rebuild what's been destroyed." She handed him a folder. Inside were talking points, apology drafts, and a schedule for a press statement. "You'll apologize publicly," she said. "Tomorrow morning, with Dr. Langford beside you." His eyes widened. "She wants me to, in front of the press?" "Yes," Elena replied coldly. "She believes in accountability, and so do we." Richard left her office feeling hollow. He had built his career on control, on command, but now he was about to stand before the world as the face of humiliation. That night he couldn't sleep. He sat in his apartment staring at his reflection, remembering the look in Maya's eyes when she revealed her identity, calm, dignified, and deeply disappointed. He realized it wasn't just his job he had endangered. It was the very trust she had built, the example she represented. When morning came, the lobby was packed with cameras. Staff lined the edges, whispering nervously. Maya stood at the podium, dressed in a navy blue blazer, her presence commanding the entire room. "Before we begin," she said into the microphones, "I want to make one thing clear. What happened here wasn't just about me. It was about every person who's ever been judged for how they look before anyone asked who they are." Flashes lit up the room. Reporters scribbled furiously. She turned slightly toward Richard, who stood stiffly beside her, eyes downcast. "Mr. Collins has agreed to address this publicly." Richard stepped forward. The murmurs quieted. His throat felt dry, but he forced the words out. "I want to start by saying I was wrong," he began. "I made a decision based on bias, not facts. I misjudged Dr. Langford, and by doing so, I disrespected not only her, but the values this hotel was built on. I am deeply sorry." The cameras clicked. Maya's expression didn't change. "I've learned," Richard continued, voice trembling slightly, "that assumptions are dangerous. I never imagined that one moment of arrogance could hurt so many people. I accept full responsibility, and I'll dedicate myself to unlearning what led me here." When he stepped back, the room was silent. Maya nodded once, then spoke again. "We can't change what happened," she said, "but we can change what happens next. The Haven Grand will begin new leadership training programs, starting with me at the front of the class. This is not just about punishment, it's about growth. The crowd applauded softly. Reporters shouted questions, but Maya turned away, signaling the conference was over. As they exited through a side door, Richard whispered, "Thank you for not firing me." Maya stopped and looked at him. "Don't thank me yet," she said quietly. "Redemption isn't earned in one apology. It's proven every day after—" Richard nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. When she walked away, he stood in the hallway alone, listening to the echo of her heels fade. For the first time, he didn't feel anger or shame, only resolve. Because for the first time in his career, he finally understood what leadership truly meant. Weeks passed, and the storm began to quiet. The viral story that once flooded every news feed slowly faded as new headlines took over. Yet, inside the Haven Grand Hotel, the impact of that single day lingered like an unhealed scar. Dr. Maya Langford's new policies reshaped everything: mandatory diversity workshops, cultural sensitivity training, and open forums where staff could share experiences without fear. For the first time, the hotel didn't just look luxurious, it began to feel humane. Richard Collins, once the proud and controlling manager, had become a student again, humble, quiet, and attentive. Every Friday he attended sessions led by social consultants, sometimes even by Maya herself. He sat among employees he once commanded, listening instead of instructing. During one session, Maya stood before the group, her posture strong yet calm. "Bias isn't always loud," she said. "Sometimes it's silent, hidden behind professionalism, policy, or habit. True leadership begins when we question our own assumptions." Richard took notes feverishly, her words echoing through his mind. Every sentence felt like a mirror reflecting the man he used to be. After class, Maya approached him privately. "You've been quiet," she said. "How are you finding the sessions?" He hesitated. "Challenging, ma'am, but necessary. I didn't realize how many blind spots I had, how many people I made feel small." She nodded. "That's growth, Mr. Collins. Awareness is the first step. Change is the next." He met her gaze. "Do you believe people like me can really change?" Maya smiled faintly. "If I didn't, I wouldn't have given you a second chance." That evening, Richard stayed late at the hotel, helping the night staff with check-ins, something he had never done before. When a young black couple entered the lobby, tired from their flight, he greeted them personally, offered them complimentary upgrades, and carried their bags to the elevator. "Thank you," the woman said, smiling warmly. "We've never been treated so kindly here before." Richard's heart sank and lifted at once. "You should have been from the start," he said softly. As weeks turned into months, subtle changes took root. Staff morale improved, guest satisfaction soared, and Maya noticed. One morning, she called Richard into her office. He walked in nervously, still unsure of his standing. Her office, lined with awards and photographs of her achievements, radiated quiet power. She gestured for him to sit. "I've been observing you," she said, "and I've read the reports from your team. They say you've changed, that you listen more, that you lead differently now." He nodded. "I'm trying, ma'am. I've realized leadership isn't about authority, it's about accountability. I used to run this place like it was mine, but it never really was. It belonged to everyone who worked here." Maya smiled slightly. "That's the man I hope to see." She paused, then slid a document across the desk. "Effective next week. You're reinstated as general manager." His eyes widened. "Ma'am, after everything I did, after everything you learned," she interrupted gently, "I don't erase people for their mistakes. I rebuild them if they're willing." Emotion welled in Richard's chest. He swallowed hard. "Thank you, Dr. Langford. You have no idea how much this means." "Oh, I do," she said softly. "Because I've been where you are, judged, underestimated, written off. The difference is someone once gave me a chance to rise beyond that. Now, it's my turn to do the same." For a long moment, they sat in silence. Two people who had started on opposite ends of power, now connected by the same understanding, growth through grace. As Richard stood to leave, Maya added, "One more thing. I want you to mentor our junior managers, teach them what you've learned, not just about business, but about humanity." He nodded firmly. "I will." Later that day, Richard stood in the lobby again, the same place where everything had fallen apart. But now, it felt different. Guests moved freely, staff smiled warmly, and the air carried not tension, but harmony. He watched as Maya entered the lobby, greeting employees by name, her presence commanding quiet respect. When their eyes met, she gave a small nod. He nodded back. No words were needed. That evening he wrote in his personal log, a habit he'd started since the scandal. I used to believe ownership was about control, but I've learned it's about responsibility, to people, to fairness, to truth. Dr. Langford didn't just teach me a lesson, she gave me a chance to become better than the man I was. He looked up, watching Maya speak with a group of young employees. Her laughter filled the lobby, confident, free, proud. And Richard realized something profound. Sometimes, the people we misjudge the most are the ones sent to save us from ourselves. The Haven Grand Hotel had been rebuilt not with money, but with humility, and at its heart stood a woman who had turned prejudice into power, and a man who had learned that redemption isn't granted, it's earned.